see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LP FM, right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, December, no it's not, it's January 17th, 2021. I'll catch up.
Yeah.
I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host, Wombat, on the phone with us. Hello, Wombat.
Dun, 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 dun. That's it.
Okay. I do recognize it. I can't name it, but I recognize it. And our guests today are Chad, Dread Pirate Higgs, George 1 and George 2, and Boudreaux. Welcome all. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you get the feeling that you're the only non-believer in Knoxville, well, you're just not. There are several atheist, free-thinking, and rationalist groups that exist right here in Knoxville, and we'll be telling you how you can connect with them right after the mid-show break. Also, did you know that there was a streaming call-in atheist video show broadcasting here in Knoxville? It has been for over 10 years. Did you know that, Wombat?
I thought the Emmys already happened, but okay, fine. That's great.
But
Ryan Seacrest is hosting or something. I'm looking really forward to it.
No, wrong channel.
Let's go Queen's Gambit. Come on.
We'll tell you more about how you can find it after the mid-show break. If you'd like to interact with us during the show, go to Facebook and do a search for Digital Freethought Radio Hour and post a message there, and we'll see it and respond. What's the topic today, Wombat?
We're going to be talking about some free speech today and how all of you guys are violating and stepping on my rights. But before we get into that, let's get into our weekly invocation from our own Dread Pirate Higgs.
Okay.
Oh, Dread, you're on mute. He's coming in. We still got Zoom problems, and it's 2021. Can you believe that? Yeah. Anyway.
User error.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Dread. Yep.
All right. God his true self did reveal. Avoid all false gods with zeal. He made one mistake. All the others are fake. But gave us no hint which is real.
Amen. Thank you guys so much. Hey, I want to go to some of the most exciting times of this, weekly get together, and I want to know how everybody's doing. Dread Pirate, you had so much on your list from last week. You had a court case. You got classes coming up. You're in Canada. What's going on with you? How are you doing?
I'm managing pretty good. I have a meeting Tuesday with a prominent retired lawyer who we've met a couple of times with respect to the court case. I've got my milk stool argument well conceived and well built, so
good.
I think it's a slam dunk. Just as long as the judge is open to hearing reason,
right,
as opposed to whatever the Human Rights Tribunal is trying to pass as a good argument. Class right now, I've only got one person signed up, but like all things, most things happen in the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Of course, I am looking for, I think I posted that on the SCE channel, looking for some creator picks for SCE arguments so that I can feature those in the class. So
you're asking for best hits of SE content producers.
Yes.
You can show them in the class.
Yes.
You have access to all my stuff, but I can give you some links to whatever what stand out to you.
It saves me scouring because I like them all. So
yeah. Plus, we've been doing it for years now, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Hey, Buffalo, it's good to see you again. How you been doing? How you been holding up? Are you vaccinated?
I am vaccinated.
Nice.
I'm a little bit, I have some feelings about that, and that is I had promised myself that I would wait until all of the K through 12 teachers were vaccinated before I would take a vaccine. But of course, the circumstances surrounding the vaccination are changing constantly. And And our university decided to do what apparently everybody's going to do now and just try to vaccine everybody and not subdivide folks because it seems to be slowing things down.
Sure.
So I got the invitation actually from my daughter. Eric's wife made me aware of the fact that it was sitting on my email, and signed up and got her done.
Good to hear it. In Kentucky, you're doing a great job getting everybody vaccinated. I mean, it's not just Buffalo, it's Eric himself too, right? Is that accurate?
Yep. My wife and I are vaccinated, and the same reason, even more, maybe more guilt attached for me. I really didn't want it until, people.
Did you get vaccination 1 and 2, or just 1 so far?
Just the one. It was Wednesday, so I mean, we're not even a week. My
Sure.
shoulder feels, or my arm feels fine now, but first couple of days it was pretty sore, like a flu shot.
Dealing with it okay? Have you have any side effects or anything?
None whatsoever for me.
Well,
I was ready for it though. I would have I would have smiled through the whole thing.
Yeah, put it in my tongue. I'll be fine with it. Yeah. Thank you, science.
But Kentucky's 50%, I think, we're among the 8 states that have actually used 50% of their doses. Just great.
Nice. It's great. Yeah, use them. George, how you been holding up?
Oh, pretty good. I am signed up to get the vaccination, and I'm actually on 2 different lists, but one of them I have an actual appointment, and so it's going to be a drive-by. I'm going to go
nice.
with my arm
Sure.
hanging out the window to the city park.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And after I get the second vaccination, I am determined to go to Walmart. And when I pass somebody who's not wearing a mask, I'm going to lower my mask and cough.
Cough in their faces. No, what you should do is lower their mask and cough into their mask.
We
I'm
shouldn't
sorry.
do either
No,
one.
that's a call to action. I'll take that back. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. Moving on. Chad the Impaler, it's been forever. Look how big his arms are. He's been flipping houses this whole time.
Oh, they're huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm great. Yet to be vaccinated, although here in Kentucky. So it seems like the University of Kentucky is doing a better job than the state of Kentucky. We among the common folk are not as vaccinated, I think, as some of the others. I could be wrong about that. Yeah. So I'll give props to the university, and I guess, props where it's deserved. But there's a long way to go. I don't know how many millions of people we have here in Kentucky. And you said, Eric, that there were, 50% of the vaccines that were available have been distributed? Do we know what's the total number of that, though?
Yeah, I don't know the number, but just knowing that most states are around 30% deployment. Yeah. And I will say
what impresses me is that West Virginia is the best of all. Apparently they've used all of their vaccine, and the governor there is a Republican governor, and he established a program that I think is called STW, Save the Wisdom. And he decided that it's old folks that are suffering the most from it. So they went out and actively make sure they went to all various different places in the state and got all the older people vaccinated.
Wow, that's very good.
So they're keeping up with the use of the vaccine they have very well.
Very good. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think in those communities, and this could be generalizing, in these Appalachian communities, there are patriarchs and matriarchs that are still in play. They rely heavily, I think, a lot of, at least the families that I know that live or that have come from that area, Appalachia, seems like it's usually matriarchies. It seems like the older gentlemen die before the ladies do, and they're left with these old grandmas and meemaws that they have to keep alive, and they're really holding some of these families together.
Yeah.
So good. That's a good move.
Yep.
And when it's brought to them, they use it.
Yeah.
Good. Doubter 5, how you been since last week?
Oh, just fine. I haven't signed up any lists for a vaccine. I'm 70 years old, so I always think I'd probably won't be one of the first vaccinated, but I depend on the VA, excuse me, the Veterans Administration, to contact me and sign me up and get me on it. but they have not done that yet. So I'm going to have to be proactive starting Monday and call them up and say, hey, what gives?
Absolutely. Get in there.
Better wait till Tuesday.
I have
Wait
signed
till
up
Tuesday?
myself.
Why?
MLK,
I'm okay.
Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, do we have another holiday coming
oh.
up? Okay, I got to get thanks guys for
Gotcha.
helping me out.
Monday.
Okay.
Thanks for helping me out with that. Those always sneak up on me. But I did sign up for my vaccine. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting it. But because I'm young, I'm likely not to be getting it until third quarter of this year. That said, I'm also fortunate enough to work at a place where we make incredible filtration media. And so I've been inundated with like, oh, this mask is really nice, 95% resistance, but the permeability could be a little bit better. This is an N95 mask, but can we make the resistance a little bit lower? I'm a little spoiled with my breathability. I want to work out with this on, and so you're just tweaking stuff all the time. You're just like, yeah, put some more nanofibers on that. It's been fun, guys. Free speech is a beautiful thing, or it's a terrible thing, but it's definitely something that we're going to be talking about. The reason why I wanted to bring it up was as of last week, Trump can no longer go on Twitter. His Instagram has been canceled. His Snapchat's been closed. His YouTube's been taken off the internet. And that's just the small tip of the iceberg. As he was being impeached, we had an unprecedented silence from the president, our chief in state. And what was interesting was after he had his first time to talk about what had happened, instead of saying, yeah, I'm sorry, I did these things, or showing some sort of accountability, his main issues that he wanted to bring up was his free speech violations in terms of being banned by big tech. And so what I want to do is there's a really good discussion here, because there's a lot of parallels between that and saying like, hey, you can pray in school, now you can't do mandatory prayers in school, and people used to complain that was a free speech issue. What is free speech? How are we violating it? Is these people who are decrying their free speech being taken away, are they accurate or not? And maybe we can just start with just the definition of free speech. I know, George, you like definitions. George, what do you mean? What do you think I mean by free speech?
Which George?
Which George?
You know Buffalo and you know George, Larry. Don't do this, because when Doubtfire's on, I don't make a big deal about this.
Okay, as I understand the constitutional guarantees or lack thereof, the Bill of Rights in the United States pertains to what the government can do or not do, and not private parties or corporations. So my interpretation of this, I think, is pretty open and shut. Facebook, for instance, is completely within their rights to shut anybody down who they feel like. They are not the government. The other matter I want to address is this. We have a tradition that you don't cry fire in a crowded theater. And I would add to that, you do not have the right to incite somebody else to a violent action.
I hear that. Yeah, so there's limitations there. But let's see, Chad, would you mind weighing in on what you mean, or what do you think I mean by free speech, or what the general public thinks they mean by free speech?
Well, the general public, I'm not quite sure. I think that it's incredibly important for us to be really careful about this. Of course, the government's not allowed to stop us from speaking freely. Dissent, I don't know, John Adams, something like that, second president. There was some dissent, and I believe he made it illegal to speak out against the president. That's changed. And it should have changed. This is, I guess, why we have the amendment. So the government can't come down on people, but are they allowed to tell private organizations that they have to provide a platform for those that they disagree with? So the law in the word doesn't talk about private organizations, as I understand it. But I think it's important when people practice law, they talk about practicing law because the spirit of the law is actually something. And I think the spirit of the amendment is something that we're going to be talking about over the coming years. don't necessarily. Well, I think we'll also be talking about whether or not platforms like Facebook and Twitter are considered utilities, and we're going to likely have to have some government oversight over these platforms, so that we can make sure that if this is a platform, a single entity is not able to disenfranchise a group of people from their speech. Now, you're free to go somewhere else and start your own platform, which was tried by, I think, some of the more right-leaning folks, and that platform was shut down. It was denied by Apple and I believe Amazon.
Google, Amazon.
Yeah, we don't have to go over its name though.
Right.
It's already off the
Yeah.
internet.
So yeah, all that stuff was shut down. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm really I hate seeing anyone being denied the right to speak, because I think the poorest among us who have nothing have the right to speak. And if we deny them platforms, we're disenfranchising them. I think we just need to be really careful and not gather up too much of our own hubris and praise ourselves for shutting down what half the country sees as a tyrant, and maybe even more than half of the country sees as someone who's incited some pretty serious violence.
Right.
I'll stop.
Udro, you want to fill on that? Your best buddy just talked.
Well, I kind of want to go back to how you set this up, which is kind of defining the term.
Sure.
And I'm no expert in this field, but I kind of take it to mean the right to say whatever you want, as long as it doesn't infringe on other people's rights. And I think that's where the nuance comes in here. I mean, you can say whatever you want. In fact, on campus, there's a free speech area. You can go.
Yeah, we were there.
We were there.
Right.
And people go there and say things that I very much
they do.
disagree with. But they have that right, and that's okay. And I actually see some of this that Chad's talking about, this cancel culture type of behavior, where someone will go and preach at the free speech area on campus, and then you'll have some. Typically it's a gay rights group come out there and shout louder and get in his face and surround him and put signs up and block his camera. And it's like, well, yes, but we gotta be careful here. Again, I think this whole thing is nuanced, and I'm really curious what the conversation is going to be about deplatforming people, because it sets a crazy precedent that, I mean, the second that it happens to us, all of a sudden now it's bad.
Yeah, there's that too. I want to hear from Dread, Buffalo, and Doubter 5 next. So Dread, how about you? How do you feel about this? What do you defines free speech and the topic and the general conversation today? He's still on mute, even though he muted himself. That's weird. Having some hard times. There you go.
No. Sorry. Yeah. No, I agree with the definitions already given. I'll add sort of anecdotally that I'm sort of still in the midst of a bit of a cancel culture campaign by someone that disagreed with a post I made on a Facebook channel, who had tried to have my license revoked from my real estate broker, who had tried to have me kicked off a foundation that I work for, and it's just been making my public life here in this small town something of a headache. And I've taken to fighting back now, to the point of civil proceedings. So I get it. I mean, the cancel culture is so freaking hostile, and it's nasty, and it's horrible to see that people who you walk past in other situations have the ability to do this, to be that kind of person, to be that mean, and to treat people that disagree with them with such anger and hostility. It's really nasty.
What's cancel culture mean?
Yeah. What are all these hip terms you're talking about, Dread? We aren't down with your jazz.
Well,
These
Well,
youngsters.
cancel culture is essentially is trying to erase someone from public. I mean, to go after me and my job, to go after me and my public image, based on something that someone can't even have the decency to have, a debate with me in public or debate in private. It's rather than try to solve a disagreement or address a difference of opinion, it's just we're going for the jugular, man, and we're taking you down no matter what. And that's what cancel culture is.
A lot of ad hominem attacks.
And I do want to head into George's perspective on free speech while we still got time. George, how do you, Buffalo, what do you feel free speech is, and what do you think of the general tone of the conversation so far?
It's to me, it's a very sticky issue, but I'd just like to speak to the cancel culture aspect, which I think we used to call Machiavellian character assassination, and that somehow that has to be dealt with. But I guess overall, I'm waiting to see what happens when the issue of whether or not Twitter and Facebook and so forth have the right to simply cancel out a group, and how that's going to be handled in Washington by the Congress, or is it going to be a stalemate for years to come? It's a very sticky issue.
How about just on free speech? What do you think free speech is?
I think free speech is within the limits of not damaging somebody else, saying what you think.
And
then having the right to
damaging
do that.
someone else.
But how do you define the limits of damaging somebody else is the sticky issue.
Yeah, that's a sticky issue. It's a sticky watermelon. What do you when you get that watermelon, you're like, oh, this is sticky. Should I put it in the bag? I don't know. I can always wash it at home. Is it on discount? Doubter 5, I want to hear what you think on free speech, because I can feel you ruminating even from over here.
Can you see the steam coming off my head?
Yeah.
No, Trump was given every opportunity to use his media, and he used it extensively for 4 years. It's when he started calling for seditious acts and revolt against the country is when they put a stop to it and dropped him as a client. First of all, these are corporations that are doing it. These are privately owned or publicly dealt corporations, and as of the most recent laws, corporations are people and they have their own rights. So you can't get on there and, one, it's a call to action when you tell people to go storm the Capitol. 2, it's an action against the government. They have every right to drop this guy from their platform or do away with the platform altogether if they want to. Sure. It's not an issue of free speech. If they were giving other people platforms to do things like that, but not giving him platform to do things like that, then it would be discrimination. But that's not the case either. So we have to pull back from that. We have to realize that he doesn't have any special rights in that area. He's just a citizen as well.
He is just a citizen as well.
With the ability to address the nation, should he choose to, which would likely be covered heavily.
Yeah. I want to weigh in myself, and then let's do roundtables to figure out how we're all going to settle on this. In my opinion, it's kind of cut and dry. Like Eric says, there's free speech areas. You can say whatever you want in a free speech area. You can say whatever you want, outside. But my bathroom, you are not allowed to go into my bathroom and say whatever you want. That's where I cut the lines. And if you say you're violating my free speech by not letting me get into your bathroom, Ty, and give this speech about iguanas, it's like it's my bathroom. You can't be in here. And that's how I feel about the same way with Twitter. It's like, hey, that's some guy's bathroom. And he's been nice to, some guy for the last 4 years, and he has a terms of policy, and it's a TOS that he made with his own team of lawyers. There's things you can and can't say on Twitter. And if you violate those terms and conditions, you are kicked off the platform. It's not an ambiguous thing. It's a cut and dry contract. And I feel like when you have someone who is inciting violence, as we had seen just last week, that's a call to action for people to say, we need to hold someone accountable. This is the person that did this. what's the best course of action and what kind of conduct
Yeah.
do we want to set as an example for the other people who share this platform? Because if we let this slide, the next person who says really either seditious things or really violent or hateful things against people of color or women or things like that, they get to slide by because we've just let some guy incite a bunch of people to storm the nation's capital. One last point. I think also we elect people to represent all of America, not just private groups or small sections of America. And I feel like what was being said by the president, particularly towards the point where it was already obvious he was losing the election, was not in the benefit of all Americans and was in fact just a benefit to himself. And I feel like at that point, we have to start asking ourselves, is the person that we have in charge, who is voicing his opinion to the public, is what he's saying harmful beyond just the violence that we saw last week, but in terms of like our nation's national security and our ability to conduct ourselves with reason and respect on a daily basis, or is that actually going to be hurtful? And I think at that point, it's okay to pull the plug on someone who's actively working out of our mutual interest or mutual benefit. Doubter 5, you wanted to say something?
Oh, just a quick thing that
Go for it.
we do have laws against some types of free speech, like liability, not liable, not liability, libel. And one of the things that Trump has opened himself up to is when he called, well, it was a private conversation, but he did eventually go public with it, is that when he called the Georgia certification administration,
Roethlisberger.
and then accused him of malfeasance and accused him of not properly vetting his job. That's liable.
Yeah.
And
also threatening him with legal action if they didn't find the.
And he has recourse. He has legal recourse. He can take him to court and on a private lawsuit, and maybe even a state lawsuit to challenge him on that and maybe get punitive damages from it.
I do want to add, I think Chad has a good point in the idea of, well, it's okay to draw the line here, but it's a slippery slope on both sides, right? Most things tend to be. And what do you do when there's a big interest that doesn't want to hear what you want to say? And I think we can point at Google, YouTube, and Twitter and say these guys worked cooperatively to stop one voice, but we can see very similar things happening with like religion on the ideas of like even vaccinations, even really honestly, but like evolution, how women's rights, should churches and states be separated? If that's the case, why do we have clergy in the Senate? Things like this. And I feel like the voices that are like, hey, church-state separation, we shouldn't have, our elected officials be, peddling more or less false hope on a weekly basis for tithe money. I say that kind of hardcore, but it's the fact of the matter. I also say like, hey, small voices like, secular points of views tend to be drowned out by big religion in the same sense that people can complain about big tech. Like, I think there's a credence to the implication that we can easily, this silencing or cancel culture can easily be used for bad as well as good. And I think that's something we should be aware of, and what can we do to get out of that? And like, it's decrying free speech the best way to go about it. I actually have some time. Chad, I'm going to throw something out at you. I'd like to see if you can maybe address that. Do you think there's parallels between what we had seen with big tech and maybe like big religion? And like, how would we go about addressing that in an honest conversation?
It's difficult. I think everybody should maybe skip a cup of coffee in the morning and actually sit down and speak to each other, since we're talking about speech, without bringing baggage to the table. The parallels between what big tech has done and what the religion argument, I think
big
they're
thought.
there. Yeah, big thought, sure. But there's something that just keeps repeating in the back of my head, and I feel like if I don't say it, it's going to just chew up my mind. I feel like I have the right to hear these people. So I feel like it's almost an infringement on my right to not be able to hear some of these dissenting opinions. Now, I don't agree with what Trump did. I am not a Trump supporter. I'm even less of a supporter of what he's done at the Capitol, or what he did at the Capitol. But man, go try to find what he said. You know, I should be allowed to make my own decisions about what is good and what isn't good information. And if we're telling people that we know what's best for you to hear, you can't be trusted with this information. That's where I think we need to draw the line. So to tell someone that they can't practice religion or non-religion because they couldn't possibly, your little mind can't possibly grasp the importance of what information we hold. We're going to have to make these decisions for you. I hate that. I hate it. I feel like I should be able to usher my consciousness around as I see fit. It's the one shot I get at this life. And I don't want anyone in my way. And I won't get in anyone else's way if I can help it.
Chad,
Can I throw something out? George, let me get ready for the break. I want to throw out one thing. Chad, I'd love to talk about this more in the second half of the show. Something I'd like for us to ruminate during the break is the difference between the idea of, here's a platform that you have to agree to the terms of service before you even join. There's a little box that even President Trump has to click before he's allowed to post anything on there. So there's a compromise of rules of engagement beforehand before you join the platform. Whereas with the religious section, it's, we are going to tell you how to raise your kid. We are going to tell you how this baby's going to be born. We'll tell you even whether or not you could have sex or not, and what kind of sex you should have. Like, before this kid's even raised in this family, religion's already there and deciding and making points and saying, you should have this, you shouldn't have this. And there's no consent to begin with. I feel like those might be radically different institutions. And what we might be blaming Twitter for, we should be really directing towards religion, because I feel like we walk into a Twitter situation with consent, whereas with religion, we don't have that. Maybe that's something we consider. Larry, why don't you take us out? We're at the bottom of the half hour.
Sure. This is the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM, right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we'll be right back after this short break.
To the curious, the inquisitive, the seekers of knowledge, to the ones who just want to know about life, about the universe, about yourself. Not cute questions, big questions, ones that matter. To the rebels, the artists, the free thinkers, and the innovators who care less about labels and more about truth, who believe nonconformity is more than a bumper sticker, that knowledge is more than words on a page. You're young, you're old, you're powerful beyond measure, and the fuel of that power is not magic or mysticism, but knowledge. The things you see, the things you feel, the things you know to be true. Sure, some will doubt you. Let them. Dare to think for yourself, to look for yourself, to make up your own mind. Because in the eternal debate for answers, the one thing that's true is the power of logic.
Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM, right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, January 17th, 2021. Let's talk about the atheist and freethought groups that you can join right here in Knoxville. First, there's the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 19th year now. ASK has over 1,000 members, and we have weekly Zoom meetings during the COVID. And you can find us online on Facebook or going to knoxvilleatheist.org. Or you can go directly to Meetup or Google and just type in Knoxville Atheist and it'll find us. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you can still go to Meetup and search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Right. Another large free-thinking group here in Knoxville are the Rationalists of East Tennessee. RET is on Facebook and at rationalist.org. Go there and click up on upcoming events to see what they're up to. Earlier in the show, we said we talked about Knoxville Atheist Video Show. Well, it was called Freethought Forum Knoxville and was on public access TV for 10 years. And you can find their archives by going to YouTube. That's Freethought Forum Knoxville. It has morphed into a YouTube video channel called Freethinkers United Coalition of Knoxville. Just search for those words and you'll find their archives and current shows. Also, if you're interested in becoming involved with the TV or this radio show, just come to an Ask Meetup, RET Facebook page, ASK Facebook page, and let us know about it. You could be our next guest. With us today on the show are Wombat, Boudreaux, Chad, Dread Pirate Higgs, and George 1 and George 2, or Buffalo as we call him. Where do we want to pick up there, Wombat?
So we're going over latest purchases on Amazon, and I got a lot of really cool things. I even got myself a really, really nice tiny little fan, and it's such a fan! What a fan, what a fan, what a fan, what a mighty good fan!
What a mighty
good fan.
Hey, guess what? We're going over listener feedback today. We got a lot of comments on last week's show, which was called Done with Trump's Gaslighting, and we're going to go over some of them today. Feel free to leave a comment. We'll go over them on next week's show. Addison369 says, hey, gaslighting, by the way, is done with the intent to make the victim feel less confident or more confused and therefore be less of a challenge or easier to control for the gaslighter. Just FYI. And I think we can see some examples of that. There's definitely a history of news editorialism that's become more prevalent and has made people a bit more skeptical of what our leaders are saying, or makes it harder for people to get true information. And that's always been an issue, especially since 24-hour news has been around. Ashley Williams says, lol, I love the ending, guys. Thank you. Keep it up. Thank you, Ashley. Comparative Reasoning says, hey, that was a great episode. At the opening, I was a little annoyed with the talk about the DC coup. I think the overlooked thing was that it was more of privileged versus privileged in DC. I see this coup as people more or less trying to do the right thing, but for the wrong reasons, and therefore it made it not well at all. What do you think about the coup attempt being mainly privileged versus the non-privileged? And if this comment is good enough, I will make a video where I scream, where's the love, where's the love, where's the love? Yes, I know where that song came from. It was a highly political and social commentary song that sadly led to nothing beyond head nodding. Well, you know what? Ella Funk was a jam. Still, either way. And I think it's always cool to have songs that aren't love songs. It's just, spice it up. But what I think generally about the coup is there was the idea of, hey, compared to the summer protests where there were peaceful protesters in Lafayette Park saying, hey, our lives matter, we're being subjugated by the government, and the government responded with, intimidation tactics, with helicopters flying over them, National Guard troops being out, pepper sprayed with, rubber bullets, arrests, zip ties, and then flip just last week, and you have 30,000 white people storming the Capitol, and there's officers taking selfies with them on the first floor, where they're chasing black officers or Capitol Police officers up flights of stairs just 2 floors above that. They're helping people out of the building. They're escorting them down the stairs. There's just a very big disparity between how people are treated based on how they look in America. And I feel like, if anything, this coup has been a magnifying glass on what's already been an issue with U.S. in terms of like international outcrying of like, hey, we call ourselves number one, but that's only if you look a certain way and when you live here. And I think it's an important thing to consider. Just going over the last comment we got from Data's Trading Room. If the president has the power to use the military to take over the country and the law allows for this, then you guys are toying with fire. I hear this before every U.S. presidential election. If something can happen, it will happen sooner or later, unless people can prevent it. We can probably lead off with this. I think the idea of, if we have a guy who's willing to post things on Twitter, how long will it be before we have a guy that uses more established
channels,
red tape and means of power to enact their power? Because we were lucky that Trump did not have military support, but he could have easily been a bit more persuasive, a bit more suave, and used back channels instead of this public platform to try to maintain his power. Now we would have been in real big problems, because that actually does happen in the world. You can look at Venezuela, you can look at many other successful dictatorships who would never take a chapter from Trump's book, but who Trump has taken many chapters from other people's books and just was not as successful. George, I want to weigh on you. Go on ahead and say the thing you were trying to say beforehand, and then what do you think of the idea of, like, you know, was the ban a good thing or not a good thing on social medias?
I think what we're going to find from this is some legal definitions to apply to social media platforms, because we've never had them before. You know, we have the question, and this has come up already in other contexts. Is Facebook, for instance, a common carrier, or are they a publisher? And my answer to that would be they are neither. You know, there has to be a third category created for this type of a platform. You know, I think in my own case, I view Facebook as a de facto common carrier, because it is an essential factor of society now. If I want,
you say that even though you don't even have a Facebook account.
I'm okay. We're on radio. I'm not going to say a certain word.
George is very anti-Facebook. He's like, don't put me on that Facebook. Forget about it.
I am anti-surveillance, and Facebook is a surveillance business.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
That's a lot of people don't realize that.
Facebook account for that reason. I have worked in high tech, and I know how easy it is for a website to adopt a surveillance methodology on its users. And so I'm very sensitive to this. And for me, to not be on Facebook is to be isolated. It's to be expunged from the culture around me. So I've paid a very dear price for this. I would say Facebook is a de facto common carrier. But let me go on to my second issue here, which had to do with what Chad said about free speech and being unable to hear opposing voices. And, you know, I brought up earlier the fact that inciting somebody else toward violence is an abuse of free speech and should not be permitted. Chad wants to hear those voices, I think. And so this brings up the libertarian perspective on this, which is go ahead, let everybody say whatever the hell they want to, and sue their ass later on if they blow it. And this is the method of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they have brought successful civil court cases against fascists who have incited violence and, you know, made them responsible for their words. They've drained the bank accounts of some very bad fascist people. They've been successful. So that's the other route.
George, we're going to see
it's the wrong one. Okay.
They've also been unsuccessful too. They've gone after the wrong people, like Majid Nawaz. Southern Poverty Law Center went after him, and he ended up suing them and winning because, they were trying to call him a bigot. He's ex-Muslim. Or
Chad, go ahead and weigh in on this. I want to hear what you want to say.
I think I probably, when I say those things that I was saying earlier, it was really just a word of caution. It was tread lightly. This is not something that we want to just say, yeah, hoorah, let's get rid of as much of this free speech as possible, because I think Rogan just had the former head of the ACLU on, and he was talking about this exact thing. And I agreed with much of what he said. I haven't listened to the entire podcast. It's over on Spotify. Go get it. It's fun. It's good. But what you've got to be careful with is, yes, you may be successful in silencing these people that are saying the things that you hate. But we flip-flop. This country's constantly in a power struggle, and the people that are in power flip-flop quite a bit, and you don't want to be on the crap end of that stick. You know, we create these horrible things, and we wind up becoming victims of them on occasion. And we just have to be careful. That's all. And I do want to hear dissenting opinion. I do not want to be in a silo. I cannot make sense of a situation with limited data, and I need more data. I need to know why. When I see people acting the way they acted at the Capitol and just before the Capitol when they were all gathered. I want to know why we're able to whip people up like that. I don't want to push them underground where they become more dangerous. I want to see it. I want to know who these people are, not a list. I'm not asking for a list. I want to talk to these people.
I want a list of them. I want a list of those guys.
I'm terrified of lists because Chad, I don't want to end up on one.
I want them to get arrested. I think that was definitely something that, like, you know, for every military member in my family who sacrificed, got shot, died, I think they deserve to be recorded. But I would say this,
every one of them.
Chad, this is a question for you. I'm wondering, have you given thought about what was mentioned in the first half of the show in the idea of, if I come to a platform with an agreement with what the platform's rules are? For example, if I said, hey, I have a cookie. If you take this cookie off this plate, I won't let you, we can't play basketball anymore. And there's like, well, I have free rights to cookies and you eat the cookie. I'm like, you just ate the cookie. You can't play basketball with me. It's like, oh, that's a violation of who I can play basketball with. It's like, no, we had this agreement ahead of time. You broke it and we can't play basketball anymore.
Yeah, versus, the only problem, go ahead. Sorry.
Versus like the religious mindset where it's like, I'm taking everybody's cookies. I'm taking 10% of your cookie, your cookie, and you don't have a say so. Like, I've already got your grandparents, I got your parents, and I got you.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a difference there. And
there is.
I don't want the implication to be Twitter and Google and Amazon on a throne said, we don't like this guy and we're going to take him off. It's very clear what their agreements are and their TOSs is. And it's very extraordinary, the event that happened that allowed that to happen. For 4 years, they were fine making money off of the ads that he was bringing by having people funnel to his site and subscribers. But when the Capitol got attacked, they said that is an obvious violation of what we had set up as a contract. And I think we can look at this list in black and white, see he breaks it, and cut terms with this person, as we would anyone who would do the same thing.
There's the rub. Just as long as we're making sure we're doing it with everyone that makes the violation.
Sure.
We're going to exercise it. We're going to put these laws in place so that we can choose to exercise our authority. When we want to. Now,
I want to interject here.
It needs to be done.
I'll just say one last thing. If Barack Obama had probably incited the government, we would have handled this way faster. So I think it's an obvious thing that in my head, I'm wondering, why did this take so long? Because I can point at many other things that Trump had said and be like, this is a violation of your terms of service.
Right.
Please get rid of this guy.
Right. But here's where my argument of I need the right to hear. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. George, you got to raise your hand. We can't have everybody talking at the same time. What's up?
My connection. Can you guys hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. I've lost my video. I've lost everything else. So anyway, what I wanted to say about terms of service, again, this comes back to whether these platforms are common carriers or not, or publishers. For me, when I first got internet service was in 1996, and I was working for the telephone company. They provided very good service in the office, so I signed up for my internet carrier with them. And the terms of service said that I was not allowed to say anything bad about the telephone company. My carrier.
That's crazy.
My internet provider was right there in the terms of service. They could cancel my account if I did.
You can't.
And I have no
pirated software. That's part of terms of service.
Well, if they cancel your account, then you have legal recourse, I guess. It may be in the contract, but you can challenge the contract and take it to court to invalidate it because it's in violation of your free speech.
Sure.
And that's probably why that's probably why that doesn't occur now to the same extent.
Yeah. I once applied for a job. As a matter of fact, I've seen this on more than one employment application where it said by applying for this position, this is at the bottom of a 3-page application where you've already done all of this work to fill out all these apps, and it's hard work. It's not easy stuff to do. You get to the bottom of it, it says by signing this application, you agree to give up your right to a jury trial.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nuts.
It says, and you agree to arbitrary arbitration, a third party arbitration. But I mean, you're giving up a basic right, and they're just asking you to, but it's a condition of employment. Now you could take that to court and say, they don't have the right to ask me to do that, but who's going to do it? I mean, especially the low echelon people who are needing a job.
It's an attempt to intimidate.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
I also think it's a good point. I'm going to go to Dredd and George, but like the idea of if we all had $10 in our pockets and just $10 in our pockets, then yes, everyone should be able to say whatever they want whenever they want to. Or maybe if that could be the case. But when you have billionaires and people who aren't billionaires in the same world, then we obviously have different volumes that we can all speak at. And at that point, what's really the best way to go about making sure the people who have the most money and will continue to have the most money don't speak for us? Like, how do we make sure the Joe Rogans don't incept our opinions of the world because they just have the largest microphone compared to what we might have? We all have nuance worth hearing. And I can agree with it's important to hear dissenting opinions. All right, Doubter Five, what do you want to
Well, yeah, I started to say, don't get me started on the cash basis of justice in America, but
sure.
I'm
Speeding
there.
tickets.
I'm there. So,
Yeah.
no, one of the most recent problems laws that they've enacted at the Capitol is that after this insurrection, they passed a rule saying that if you bring a gun into the chamber, we're talking about even lawmakers now, the first offense will be $5,000 fine. The second offense will be $10,000 fine. Half of the people who serve in Congress are millionaires. This is a fine that's going to affect some of them, very few of them, but it's just a slap on the wrist. It's hardly even that. They don't care. They're going to carry that gun in there against the rules, against the law, and pay the fine. Who cares? But poor people or people who are just barely squeaking by cannot afford to do that. So their right to do that has been infringed, where the millionaires' rights have not been infringed hardly at all. Anyway,
Dread Pirate, we got to get to you. What have you been thinking about?
Well, we were talking about the condition of employment, and that some people are required to sign off on things. I have a security license. I also have a firearms license, which is a federal identification.
Nice.
And if you see there, I've got my tricorner on, which is my religious headgear.
Yeah.
This is my security license, which they would not allow me to wear, and threatened not to give me this license, which of course I am required to have in order to work. And so essentially under duress, they've coerced me to take a picture without my religious headgear as a condition of employment. So there you have it. I mean, here I'm going to I'm going to court here in February against ICBC, and it could be argued, of course, that a driver's license as a privilege is absolutely necessary for certain types of employment. As a realtor, it's absolutely necessary for me. Yeah. And yet I'm being bullied and coerced into not wearing it, or giving up my right to pursue my freedom of expression in order to accommodate whatever their beliefs are with respect to it. Sikhs, of course, are allowed to wear turbans, and and all they have to do is walk in and identify. Walk in with a turban, and if you're of the appropriate skin color, guess what? You're in like Flint. If I have argued, and this is part of my milk stool argument here for court, is if I came in to ICBC with a turban that had been put on me by someone who has been a Sikh, a practicing Sikh, and I just proclaimed, I'm here to get my photo taken. I am a Sikh. I'm a believer in Sikhism. Take my picture. I do seriously wonder if they would have a pause to challenge me on that.
Right.
And then by what test of faith would they be able to test that? Cool. So
right.
There you go. That's my bit.
Buffalo, back on free speech. What do you think about what we've been talking about?
Yeah,
so far
I think
today?
this is the basis of a lot of our problems.
Dark Money.
Dark
Money.
money.
I thought that was a Swedish guy, like Dark
By
Money.
Jane Mayer, and she talks about the Koch foundations, all 259 of them that exist, that are nonprofit organizations and pay no taxes, but write write bills to and pass them around to state legislators to determine what they want, and they've got the money to back it up. Edelman's gone now, and one of the Koch brothers is gone, but we still have one more of them. So it's these people that have the clout and basically have a lot to do with money and justice in this country, in my opinion.
Cool. I want to bring up some salient points. We still have some time, so how about this? The Bill of Rights, in my opinion, is a document that protects us from the government. It gives us rights so that we don't have to have repercussions from the government. It's not a tool for the government to say we should have more rights to do what we want against private companies, because we are the private company. We are the people that make businesses. And it's an easy thing to forget, especially when there's a disproportionate amount of people in positions of power that might look like white men. It's an easy thing to forget that. But if you don't look like them, if you don't look like the government that, controls your life, it's a very, very poignant thing to always remember that your interests need to be protected, and you should be aware of them, because when the government wants those interests or tries to twist those interests into a narrative that protects them against you, that's a problem, because that's not what the Bill of Rights are for. That's not what free speech is for. It's for people, not the government. And so if a person of government says, this is a violation of my free right, I should be able to do this. Like, you're the president of the United States, you're Congress, you already have the limitations. We can decide what we want, and we give you the power to rule over us. It's not the other way around. Let's see, Chad, what do you think about that? We'll just go. Chad, you like to go long? Let's go for it. I like to go long too.
Yeah. So the rights, I think the government protects us from each other, and we make things like corporations and entities, and we're protected from all of these powerful groups. We're protected down to the level of the individual. So I think I focus generally on the power in the hands of the individual. Earlier, you were talking about platforms and how, at least I read it like it was important to you that even the smallest person would have the same amount of voice, even though they don't in this country. And I think the internet, and as much as I have trouble with some social media, not platform specific, I think we as a species weren't ready for this. But I think I really don't. I think it's important to protect everyone's right down to the individual and not break up into groups, because never has the individual had more ability or more power over their own voice and where it goes and how many people can hear that voice. And I think it's time to pull some of that power back away from the groups and ensure that our government doesn't infringe on our right to be loud, outspoken individuals. Sure, it's fine to break up into groups. That's one thing we're able to do because of social media, but understand that you are still an individual and you have your rights, and the rights are given to you as an individual.
Cool. Boudreaux.
Can I underscore a point that you were trying to make, Wombat, to Chad's statement there? Yes, the individual, everything you're saying makes perfect sense. But when that individual is operating as the president of the United States, that we're no longer talking about an individual. Now we're talking about someone who was hired, elected to do a job. And that's where I think that argument falls apart. It's a president doing it. It's not an individual. He's just acting like an individual.
I don't disagree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. The president
Guys-
has a lot more platform than I will ever have.
Yeah, it's very rare you can be blocked on Twitter and then be like, I got 14 other news media outlets that'll carry this video for me. It's all good.
Yeah.
I do want to wrap up. I think we had a really good conversation. This is so good, man. I wish I wish I could talk to you guys for so much longer when we did. Maybe we'll do some off time. But Chad, you need to come back. You were great. You really do need to come back for sure.
If
you have
I went
time.
long
If you have
on all
time.
this, but
And George.
I'd be happy.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo, we'd love to have you back too. What was that book? You mind plugging that book one more time? Dark Money. Whenever I see
Dark
an old
Money by Jane Mayer,
by
who
Jane
talks about the history of big money in this country, all the way through to how they write write bills and literally pass them on, sometimes to be used verbatim in state legislatures around the country. And it's all based upon protection of individuals or politicians and being successful in their primaries and that whole thing.
Very cool.
It's really quite good.
Nice. Dread Pirate, where can we find your stuff at?
So I broadcast this every Sunday morning. For me, it starts at 8 a.m. PST, and we do the whole hour live. We had 4 viewers today, so that's
Hey,
kind of
nice.
good.
Yeah, that's a good. What are you talking about? That's amazing. That's
you can
4
find
times
that
more than we've ever had.
Actually, Loma has been pretty good. He comes on quite regularly.
What's
and
up, Loma?
Dada's Trading Room, he's been on too. But you can find me on YouTube at Mindpyrate, MINDPYRATE. And since George there plugged a book, I'd want to plug this book. It's called Empire of Illusion: The End of Literacy and the Triumph of Spectacle by Chris Hedges. So I can always put that in the chat.
George, you got anything you want to plug?
I do not.
Totally fine. Eric, do you
But
got
I'll
any
make-
music?
I'll
You
make
got
a
any
little
music?
plug at the end. I'll make
Okay.
a little plug at the very end of the show.
Okay. Bujo, you got any music you want to recommend for anybody to listen to?
Well, we're putting the finishing touches on a original song that I'm working on with a buddy. He's actually writing it for his terminally ill wife. I played bass on it, and we got all that recorded. He's got it, and I'm just doing the drums now, and it's
Nice.
tough because it's punk rock. And I'm going to get in trouble on the comments for calling Majid Nawad's an ex-Muslim. I know it. Apologies. I misspoke. So
It's fine.
Chad,
We
you
welcome
should- you
fire.
should've
We can handle it.
Right.
Atheists don't burn. We all know that. Chad the Impaler, do you have a recommendation for tips for people who want to flip a home? What's the best way to
Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, this is taking a lot longer than I anticipated. Vet your contractors and then vet them again, and have at least have a bench at least 3 contractors deep, or be ready to eat up all or much of your profit. I've spent a lot of time waiting for contractors to call me or show up, and it's brutal. This house I'm doing is right next door, so it's difficult for me to not just go over there and try to do it all, and it's overwhelming. It's too much. So no, just don't do it. And I did also want to mention that Boudreaux and I we've made it a solemn vow to finally kick off our own series of podcasts, which we're going to record another one right after this.
I
So
give you a mic
coming soon.
recommendation. I hope the mic turns out well. Okay, so I'm Let's Chat on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube. Larry, why don't you take us out?
Okay, my own content is on digitalfreethought.com. You can find our blog there, the radio show archives, atheist songs, many articles on the subject of atheism. My book is called Atheism, What's It All About? It's available on Amazon. If you have questions for the show, send them to Ask an Atheist at knoxvilleatheist.org, and we'll answer them on future shows. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. This has been Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't worry about it. Enjoy your life. And we will see you next week at 7 o'clock on WOZO Radio in Knoxville. Take care, everybody. Say bye-bye.
And
Bye bye.
You are going to somebody else's hell.
Not me. See ya. Bye-bye.